Hello, esteemed gentlemen. Some men are born to blend in, and some men are born to break the script. Psychologists have long noted that when women describe the ideal man, they often unknowingly describe a paradox. Someone confident yet humble, independent yet attentive, powerful yet gentle. But here's the catch. When they actually meet a man who embodies that paradox, a true Sigma male, they can't handle him. Why? Because he doesn't play the games, he doesn't bend to expectations, and he doesn't trade his authenticity for approval. A Sigma doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't pretend, and that's exactly why he's both magnetic and maddening. Think of it like ordering the spiciest dish on the menu. Women say they want it, until they take the first bite and realize, oh no, this is way hotter than I bargained for. That's what encountering a Sigma male feels like. A thrilling challenge on the surface, but one that burns far deeper than expected. And today we're going to peel back the curtain and reveal 12 brutally honest reasons why women simply cannot handle a true Sigma male. Reasons that will surprise you, unsettle you, and maybe even make you laugh at how brutally accurate they are. Number 1. He refuses to be trained. Most men, whether they realize it or not, eventually allow themselves to be reshaped inside relationships. It usually starts small, changing the way they dress, adjusting their hobbies, or biting back opinions just to keep the peace. Over time, they lose bits and pieces of themselves until what remains is a man polished, softened, and trained into what his partner wanted him to be. A true Sigma male simply doesn't work like that. He refuses to be molded, managed, or domesticated into a version of himself that doesn't feel authentic. That refusal alone is one of the hardest things for many women to accept. For a Sigma, compromise has its place, but self-erasure does not. He doesn't agree to things just to avoid arguments. He doesn't nod along just to make someone happy. His beliefs, values, and habits are not up for negotiation like items on a menu. When he says no, he means it. When he has a boundary, it's not a suggestion, it's a wall. This isn't stubbornness for its own sake, it's self-respect. And self-respect at that level is unsettling for women who are used to men gradually bending to their influence over time. The truth is, many relationships survive because men learn to silence parts of themselves for the sake of harmony. The Sigma doesn't play that game. He won't pretend to enjoy social events he hates. He won't adopt new mannerisms because she hints it would be cute. He won't suddenly alter his mission in life just to fit her ideal. Instead, he continues exactly as he is, raw, unpolished, and unmoved by subtle conditioning. That independence is both attractive and frustrating. Attractive because it signals strength and authenticity. Frustrating because it strips her of the quiet sense of control she's used to having over men. What makes it even harder is that he doesn't rebel loudly. He doesn't argue endlessly or make dramatic statements about independence. He just lives it. His consistency exposes the difference between what she thought she could influence and what she actually can't. And when every attempt to steer him falls flat, many women feel powerless, even rejected, because his very existence proves he can't be shaped to fit anyone's mold. That's why this point stings so deeply. The Sigma male isn't trying to resist control. He simply lives beyond it. And for women who are used to holding the reins, that's a reality almost impossible to handle. Number 2. He lives as if love is optional, not essential. For most men, love is not just a desire, but a necessity. It becomes the measure of their worth, the center of their happiness, and often the defining goal of their lives. They feel incomplete without it, and many build their identity around being chosen, accepted, or validated by a woman. A true Sigma male stands in sharp contrast to that mindset. For him, love is not a requirement for survival, it's a bonus. It's something he welcomes if it comes, but it never dictates his life or his sense of value. That shift in perspective is exactly what makes him so difficult for many women to deal with. A Sigma doesn't walk into a relationship looking for someone to complete him. He's already whole, already grounded in who he is, and already fulfilled by his own mission. That independence changes the balance of power. Many women expect men to revolve around them, to prioritize the relationship above all else, and to seek constant reassurance that they are loved. The Sigma doesn't operate that way. He can love deeply, but he never confuses love with dependency. He doesn't make a woman the center of his universe, because his universe already has its own orbit. This reality can be unsettling for women because it strips away the leverage that love usually provides. In most relationships, the idea that a man can't live without her becomes an unspoken source of control. With a Sigma, that leverage simply doesn't exist. He values companionship, but he's not enslaved by it. If a relationship enhances his life, he stays. If it becomes a drain, he leaves, without bitterness, without fear, and without second-guessing himself. What makes this even harder to accept is that he's not cold or incapable of affection. He can be loyal, attentive, and deeply passionate, but he never loses himself in the process. That balance exposes a truth many women aren't ready for. He chooses her, but he doesn't need her. That difference may sound small, but it changes everything. The Sigma male's approach to love is freedom-based, not fear-based. He doesn't cling because he knows he'll thrive with or without it. For women who are used to being the centerpiece of a man's identity, that kind of detachment feels less like romance and more like a threat. And that is why so many find it almost impossible to handle. Number 3. He refuses to be a backup plan. For many women, keeping a bench of men orbiting in the background is standard practice. It's not always malicious. It's often framed as keeping options open, maintaining attention, or simply having a safety net. These men hang around, waiting for their chance, tolerating half-interest, and accepting crumbs of attention. Most men play along, hoping patience will eventually pay off. A Sigma male refuses to play that game. He doesn't orbit, he doesn't linger, and he doesn't accept being held in reserve. For him, it's all or nothing. He's either fully engaged or completely gone. There's no middle ground. That stance is disruptive because it dismantles the sense of security many women take for granted. The idea of having someone dependable on standby, someone who will always pick up the phone, always wait in the shadows, always be available, is comforting. But when it comes to a Sigma, that safety net doesn't exist. The moment he senses he's being placed on the sidelines, he cuts the cord and vanishes. He doesn't make dramatic announcements, he doesn't argue for his worth. He just disappears and never looks back. This can be difficult to process because his withdrawal isn't rooted in anger or bitterness, it's rooted in principle. To him, half-interest is the same as disrespect, and he won't bargain with his self-respect just to maintain proximity. That brutal clarity forces women to see the difference between a man who values himself and one who's content to wait in the shadows. It also forces them to confront the uncomfortable truth that they don't own his time, his energy, or his loyalty, unless they're willing to give the same in return. The Sigma's refusal to be a backup plan exposes the imbalance in many modern dynamics. Most men bend over backwards for a chance, even when they're clearly an afterthought. The Sigma would rather walk away with his dignity intact than wait around for scraps. That unwillingness to orbit makes him rare, and it makes him dangerous to the illusions that many women hold. What unsettles them most is the finality of it. Once he's gone, he's gone. He won't come back when Plan A fails. He won't be waiting in the wings, and he won't entertain excuses. That all-or-nothing stance doesn't just remove him as an option. It removes the comfort of knowing he'd always be there. And for women used to keeping men in orbit, that loss of control is almost impossible to handle. Number 4, he doesn't give unlimited access. Even when a Sigma male lets someone close, he never hands over the full map of who he is. There are parts of him that remain untouched, unspoken, and untouchable. It's not a calculated game, and it's not about playing hard to get. It's simply his natural state of being. He values privacy, not because he's hiding something, but because he understands that not every part of him should be up for public consumption, even in the most intimate relationships. For women who are used to men laying everything bare, this can feel maddening. Many expect complete emotional transparency, a constant outpouring of thoughts and feelings, and the comfort of knowing they've accessed every corner of a man's mind. With a Sigma, that never happens. He may share pieces, his vision, his passions, his vulnerabilities, but there's always a part of him that remains locked away. It's not coldness. It's boundaries carved into his very nature. This limitation creates a kind of paradox. On one hand, his depth and mystery make him irresistible. On the other, the realization that they can never fully own him becomes a quiet source of frustration. No matter how much time passes, no matter how close the bond grows, there will always be a piece of him that belongs only to himself. That truth unsettles many women because it denies them the full possession they often crave in a relationship. What makes it even more intriguing is that his refusal to give unlimited access doesn't come with walls of arrogance or hostility. He can be warm, loyal, and deeply engaged, yet he never dissolves into complete exposure. The hidden layers are not secrets to be uncovered, but boundaries to be respected. That restraint keeps him from becoming predictable, and it ensures that his sense of identity is never swallowed up by love or attachment. For the Sigma male, this is non-negotiable. His inner world is his sanctuary, and he protects it fiercely. Women who encounter this often wrestle with the uncomfortable truth that no matter how much he loves them, they will never have absolute claim over him. And in a world where control and complete access are often mistaken for intimacy, his refusal to surrender every part of himself is precisely what makes him both magnetic and impossible to handle. Number 5. He doesn't operate on female timelines. A Sigma male lives outside the invisible calendar most women are conditioned to follow. From a young age, women are told when things should happen, by what age they should be married, when kids should arrive, and how relationships should progress. Alongside that, many men unconsciously absorb those same expectations and adjust their choices to fit into that timeline, often rushing decisions just to meet someone else's idea of the right time. A true Sigma refuses to play along. He does not measure his life by social deadlines or a partner's biological clock. He moves entirely by his own rhythm, and that independence makes him nearly impossible to pressure. This rejection of external timelines can be both liberating and deeply frustrating. On one hand, it shows a level of strength most men lack. He cannot be guilt-tripped into rushing commitment, fatherhood, or marriage simply because society says it's time. On the other hand, for women who are counting the years, his resistance feels like defiance. It dismantles the narrative that men should adjust their lives around female expectations, and it reminds her that she cannot fast-track or engineer his choices. The Sigma's timeline isn't built on fear of running out of time, but on alignment. If he doesn't feel that a relationship is right, no deadline will push him into it. If he's not ready for a step, he won't take it just to keep someone from leaving. That brutal honesty unsettles women who are used to men caving under the pressure of, "If you don't do this now, you'll lose me." With a Sigma, that threat falls flat, because he would rather lose a relationship than lose himself. This is what makes him so different. His life is not dictated by ticking clocks, emotional ultimatums, or outside expectations. He acts when he feels the timing is authentic, not when someone else says it should be. And while that gives him immense freedom, it leaves many women conflicted. They're drawn to his strength and independence, but they quickly realize he won't bend his life to their schedule. In the end, the Sigma male doesn't reject love, marriage, or family. He rejects being rushed into them. And that refusal to live on borrowed time is exactly why so many women struggle to handle him. Number 6. He never plays the courtship theater. For most men, dating is treated like a performance. They slip into roles, put on charm, and exaggerate qualities just to secure a woman's approval. From elaborate dates to scripted compliments, many men willingly step onto that stage because they believe the show is what wins love. A Sigma male refuses to play that part. He doesn't audition, doesn't rehearse, and doesn't beg for applause. What you see is what you get. Raw, unfiltered, and entirely himself. That refusal to perform is exactly what makes him so difficult for women to handle. When women step into dating, they often expect familiar rituals, the chase, the flattery, the persistent effort to win them over. It's not that these gestures are meaningless, but they're predictable. They create a comfort zone where she feels in control. A Sigma strips all of that away. He won't shower someone with gifts to prove his value. He won't constantly text to prove his interest. He won't bend over backwards to be entertaining. Instead, he offers his presence as is. And because he's not playing for points, his authenticity feels disarming, even unsettling. This doesn't mean he's cold or careless. It means he doesn't confuse courtship with theater. If he's interested, he'll say so. If he enjoys someone's company, he'll show up. But without the exaggerations most women have grown accustomed to. That directness can be refreshing, but it also creates discomfort, because it forces a woman to face a truth many avoid. He's not trying to impress her. He's not trying to sell himself. He's simply letting her decide if she can handle the reality of who he is. And here's the deeper twist. Many women find themselves more attracted because of it. They're used to men proving, chasing, and convincing. When a Sigma doesn't, his lack of desperation feels like confidence in its purest form. Yet that very confidence flips the script, because it means she no longer holds the usual power in the dynamic. She can't control the pace. She can't manipulate through expectation, and she can't extract endless validation from him. The Sigma male's refusal to play the courtship theater isn't about rebellion. It's about integrity. He doesn't hide behind flowers, fake charm, or borrowed lines. He shows up as himself, and only himself. And for women conditioned to expect performance, that brutal authenticity is both irresistible and impossible to manage. Number 7. He's immune to the beauty trap. For most of history, beauty has been one of the strongest forms of leverage women hold over men. Entire industries exist because men will chase, buy, and even ruin themselves for a beautiful face or body. Many women grow up knowing, even subconsciously, that their looks can bend men's behavior, unlock doors, and keep attention hooked. But with a Sigma male, that advantage collapses. He may admire beauty, even enjoy it, but he never worships it. He sees it for what it is, temporary, surface level, and often a distraction from what actually matters. This indifference to beauty as leverage leaves many women shaken. They are used to men falling in line, changing their plans, or even betraying their own principles just for a chance to be close to someone attractive. A Sigma doesn't operate on that weakness. He can sit across from someone breathtaking and still evaluate her character with cold clarity. He notices the flaws behind the face, the attitude beneath the makeup, and the emptiness that beauty alone can't cover. That ability to see through the glitter makes him immune to manipulation where other men collapse. It's not that a Sigma disrespects beauty, far from it. He appreciates it, but he doesn't mistake it for value. He doesn't confuse external attraction with depth, and he certainly doesn't allow beauty to override his standards. A woman can be stunning, but if her character is shallow or her energy toxic, he'll walk away without hesitation. That kind of detachment is almost unthinkable to women who are accustomed to beauty being their strongest currency. What makes this even more frustrating is that his immunity doesn't come with arrogance. He doesn't brag about being above beauty, nor does he pretend not to notice it. He simply refuses to let it dictate his choices. That quiet self-control strips away the advantage most women unconsciously rely on, forcing them to confront a truth many don't want to face. Beauty might open the door, but it won't keep him inside. In a world where many men are willing to sell out their dignity for the sake of looks, the Sigma male's resistance is rare and unsettling. His ability to enjoy beauty without being enslaved by it robs women of their oldest weapon. And when that weapon fails, many don't know how to handle him at all. Number 8. He doesn't validate female victimhood. One of the hardest truths about dealing with a Sigma male is that he doesn't hand out emotional freebies. Most men, whether out of fear, conditioning, or desperation to keep the peace, will validate a woman's complaints no matter how unreasonable they are. They'll nod, agree, and reassure, even when deep down they know the situation is exaggerated or self-inflicted. A Sigma refuses to play that role. He will listen, but he won't coddle. If she's stuck in a cycle of self-pity, fishing for endless sympathy, or dramatizing her life to gain attention, he won't stroke that ego. He'll cut through it with blunt honesty, and that honesty often feels like a slap in the face to someone expecting comfort. For many women, the identity of being a victim has become a subtle form of control. By presenting themselves as wronged, overwhelmed, or fragile, They create an expectation that men should rush to soothe and rescue them. Most men comply because it feeds the illusion of being a protector and earns them approval in return. But a Sigma sees through the performance. He knows the difference between real struggle and emotional theatrics, and he won't enable the latter. Instead, he forces accountability. He tells her what she needs to hear, not what she wants to hear. That brutal honesty is often too much for women who have been conditioned to expect men to cushion their feelings. They may call him insensitive, cold, or detached, but what's really happening is that they're confronting a truth they've managed to avoid with other men. He refuses to let victimhood become a permanent identity, and that refusal pulls away their emotional safety net. What makes this even more unsettling is that he's not cruel. He doesn't tear someone down for the sake of it, nor does he mock genuine pain. If she's truly suffering, he will support her, but he'll do it in a way that pushes her towards strength, not weakness. He refuses to let pity become a form of love because he knows pity is poison. This is why women struggle with him. They can't manipulate his empathy, they can't rely on endless coddling, and they can't make their drama the center of his world. By refusing to validate victimhood, the Sigma male forces women to stand on their own feet. And for many, that's a weight they've never had to carry before. Number 9. He doesn't bend under emotional pressure. Emotional pressure is one of the oldest tactics in relationships. Tears, guilt trips, ultimatums, silent treatments, these are levers that often work because most men have been trained to respond to them. They cave, not necessarily out of compassion, but out of discomfort. They'd rather sacrifice their boundaries than deal with the storm. A Sigma male is wired differently. He doesn't confuse emotion with truth, and he doesn't allow temporary feelings to dictate his long-term decisions. That's why these tactics bounce off him, leaving women frustrated when their most reliable influence tools suddenly fail. When faced with crying, most men instinctively soften, even if they were right. A Sigma doesn't. He knows tears can be real, but he also knows they can be a weapon. Instead of reacting blindly, he pauses, assesses, and responds with clarity. The same goes for guilt tripping. Attempts like, "If you loved me, you'd do this," or "After everything I've done for you," fall flat because he doesn't equate manipulation with love. Love for him is choice, not obligation. That mental separation makes him incredibly hard to sway. Ultimatums, too, hold no weight. Where many men would panic at the idea of losing a woman, the Sigma accepts it as part of life. If she threatens to leave unless he bends, he won't bend, he'll let her walk. That level of detachment is unsettling because it strips away the safety net many women rely on. They realize they can't corner him, can't box him in, and can't use emotion to trap him into compliance. This isn't because he lacks empathy. In fact, a Sigma often understands emotions deeply, but he refuses to let them override logic or self-respect. He knows that once you start bending under emotional pressure, you'll never stop. The relationship becomes a cycle of manipulation, and he won't participate in that. His refusal forces women to face him on equal terms. Clear communication, mutual respect and honesty, not emotional blackmail. That's the core of why women struggle with this. Emotions, for many, have always been powerful bargaining chips. With a Sigma, they lose their power. And when that tool fails, it exposes the relationship for what it really is. An unfiltered interaction where control has no place. For women who are used to winning through emotion, that's not just frustrating, it's terrifying. Number 10. His energy is not up for grabs. One of the most unsettling things about a Sigma male is how carefully he guards his energy. Most men are conditioned to pour themselves into women, making them the center of their emotional world. They invest their time, attention, and focus in hopes of being validated or chosen. Many women grow up expecting this dynamic, that a man's energy should orbit around them. With a Sigma, that expectation dies quickly. His energy isn't free, it isn't scattered, and it's definitely not up for grabs. He directs it inward, into his mission, his goals, and the life he's building. A woman can be part of that, but she will never own it. This isn't selfishness, it's discipline. A Sigma understands how easily men lose themselves by giving too much attention away. They end up drained, distracted, and dependent on the very validation they're chasing. He refuses to fall into that trap. His attention has weight, and he treats it like currency. If he gives it to someone, it's intentional, not automatic. That makes his presence powerful, but it also makes his absence even louder. For women, this is both magnetic and maddening. On one hand, his focus creates a sense of mystery and strength that pulls them in. On the other, the realization that they'll never be the center of his universe stings. No amount of beauty, drama, or emotional demand can fully pull his energy away from where he chooses to place it. And because his mission always comes first, she has to accept that she's part of his life, not the entirety of it. What unsettles women most is the consistency of this. It's not a phase, it's not a strategy, and it's not something she can negotiate away. Even when he loves deeply, even when he commits, his core energy remains anchored in himself. That independence breaks the illusion that love means possession. It forces her to see that his attention is borrowed, never owned, and that no amount of pressure will change that. This is why women often struggle with Sigma men. They aren't used to men who don't hand over their focus freely. They aren't used to being near someone whose energy is disciplined, untouchable, and unapologetically self-directed. And when they realize they can't control or monopolize it, it leaves them both fascinated and frustrated at the same time. Number 11. He challenges her narrative of control. For decades, society has reinforced the idea that women hold the real power in dating. They are told they are the prize, that men must compete, prove, and chase if they want a chance. Many women grow up believing this script so deeply that it feels like an unquestionable truth, and to be fair, with most men, it works. They audition, they overgive, they surrender their standards, all to win approval. A Sigma male quietly destroys that narrative without even trying. He doesn't chase, doesn't beg, and doesn't put her on a pedestal. By simply existing outside those expectations, he flips the entire frame of control. What makes this so difficult for women is that the Sigma doesn't even argue with the narrative. He doesn't rebel loudly or complain about double standards. He just doesn't participate. He's not competing for her attention because he's not competing at all. He's not bending his life to win her validation because her approval isn't the fuel for his identity. That absence of submission forces her to confront something society never prepared her for. She cannot control him through the usual dynamics. Many women expect to be able to set the pace, dictate the standards, and hold the subtle power of choosing who qualifies. With a Sigma, the frame reverses. She may be the one questioning if she's worthy of his standards. She may find herself adjusting her behavior to keep his attention, instead of the other way around. That shift is destabilizing, because it dismantles the comforting illusion that men are always the ones under pressure to prove themselves. The Sigma's approach isn't about dominance, it's about sovereignty. He doesn't need to control her, but he won't let her control him. He stands firmly on his own path, and if their lives align, it's by choice, not coercion. That refusal to bow to the narrative of female control makes him rare, and it makes him disruptive. This is why women often describe Sigma men as both irresistible and infuriating. He isn't playing the game by the rules they've been told they always win. He's rewriting the script simply by being immune to it. And for women who've been taught that they naturally hold the upper hand, facing a man who lives beyond that illusion can be both thrilling and impossible to handle. Number 12. He forces brutal self-reflection. A Sigma male has a way of holding up a mirror without even trying. His presence alone can trigger brutal self-reflection because he doesn't feed into the illusions many women are used to. He doesn't chase, he doesn't pedestalize, and he doesn't shower anyone with endless validation just to keep their interest. For a woman who's accustomed to being treated like the center of the universe, this is deeply unsettling. Instead of feeling constantly reassured, she's confronted with silence, detachment, or neutrality. And that forces her to ask questions she might have avoided her whole life. Am I really as special as I thought? Or have I been relying on men's attention to feel valuable? What makes this effect so sharp is that it's unintentional. The Sigma isn't trying to break down anyone's ego, he's just being himself. He treats people based on character, not status, appearance, or charm. So when a woman expects automatic adoration and doesn't receive it, she's left in a vulnerable place. She realizes her beauty, her social power, or her charm may not carry as much weight as she believed. That realization can be both painful and liberating, depending on how she chooses to handle it. Instead of drowning her in compliments, he gives space. Instead of chasing, he watches. Instead of inflating her self-image, he leaves her to measure her own worth. This absence of external validation creates a vacuum, and in that vacuum, insecurities rush to the surface. It's not that he's cold or dismissive. He can be kind and deeply attentive, but he never lets flattery replace truth. His presence makes it clear that if she wants to feel valuable, it has to come from within, not from his approval. Many women struggle here because self-reflection isn't always flattering. It reveals dependence on attention, the cracks behind confidence, and the ways in which self-worth has been outsourced to others. The Sigma male doesn't fix those cracks for her. He exposes them, and that's precisely why he's so difficult to handle. Being with him means facing parts of herself she'd rather ignore. It means seeing how much of her identity was built on other people's reactions. And while that mirror can sting, it's also what makes him unforgettable. Because once a woman has stood in the reflection of a Sigma's indifference, she can never look at herself or her relationships the same way again. A true Sigma male is not difficult to handle because he's cold, cruel, or detached. It's because he refuses to live on anyone else's terms. He doesn't bend to timelines, he doesn't audition for affection, and he doesn't crumble under emotional pressure. He sees through beauty, through manipulation, through social games that most people never even question. His energy is guarded, his self-respect unshakable, and his presence forces others to confront truths about themselves they'd rather avoid. What makes him so magnetic is the same thing that makes him so hard to manage. He can't be owned. Not by love, not by control, not by the illusions society feeds into relationships. He gives what he chooses, and only to those who've earned it. And that's why women find themselves both drawn to him and rattled by him. He doesn't need to dominate to prove his power. He simply exists outside the script, and that alone flips the entire game on its head. At the end of the day, handling a Sigma isn't really about him. It's about whether someone is ready to face themselves in his presence, without the safety nets of control, manipulation, or ego. For most, that's too heavy a mirror to hold. And that's why a Sigma male will always remain one of the rarest, most untouchable men a woman could ever encounter. If this breakdown of why most women can't truly handle a Sigma male opened your eyes, then don't just stop here. Hit that subscribe button and join a community that dives deeper into the mindsets, behaviors, and truths most people are too afraid to talk about. If you found this valuable, like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts and let me know which point hit you the hardest. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to hear it, because the world deserves more unfiltered truth. Your support keeps this channel alive, and trust me, we're just getting started.